Hello, my name is Michał Piotrkowicz, and I professionally deal with white weapons and samurai fencing. Today I'm going to tell you about Uke No Waza, about block techniques, or in other words, pledge techniques. So, we will start from the top. The first block I'm going to do is Kasumi Uke. You may have noticed that I'm moving to the side. This way. This way. So now, the block or the pledge is just kind of like an extra security, an additional protection. It's a block on a straight cut from above, so I'm basically defending myself by stepping off the line of attack. Here, or to the other side. But it could always be that I make a small false start in my footwork, and I start breaking my position towards the side I'm escaping. And the opponent notices this, and instead of cutting like this, straight, he'll cut slightly at an angle. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't think that I'm going to make a perfect straight cut. I'm just going to cut his head in half, okay? If that head is a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, the opponent, if he still can, is going to redirect that cut. So that is kind of an extra precaution. If I manage to block with the descent in such way that even if that block doesn't hold, I still don't get cut, then, well, great. If I actually shield myself with a weapon from a cut aimed at my head, then let's say, here's the cut, okay? And he is taking a swing to attack again, so this is the moment to counterattack, because if I let go, he is going to cut me, right? So if he presses my block with his weapon here, I have to either wait until he stops doing that, tries to make some other cut, and then I've got him. During his swing I'm countering, or use his force, come down even harder, and cut the guy in half. Right? Well, whatever. Angle can be a lot. Today I'm covering the blocks. The Kasumi Uke block is a block for vertical cuts from above, done with one hand or both hands. What is unthinkable with attacks, that is, rotating the wrists or loosening the grip, is absolute basis when it comes to blocks. Blocks we perform with mune, the back of the sword, or shinogi, with the side of the sword. So if I do it this way, and block with the blade on the blade, well, better that than getting cut in the head, sure. But it does cause damage to the blade, which can effectively destroy the sword eventually. And it may be that no grinder will be able to take it out, and even the sword may break, if it's carved out of weaker material, or it's another such damage in a row. So the block should look like this. You see, I'm putting shinogi and mune here. Hands should be skirted to the side. Elbows almost straight. Tsuka should be higher than kisaki. Because if somebody strikes here and the blade catches such a resonance, well, it will slide this way. If I'm holding it like this, it will slide down to the sword's guard. Tsuba is not a very good protection. It's not a basket like in saber. So it's better not to test how good Tsuba is. It looks like this. The arms can't be bent, because then if someone hits very hard, it will bend them more, and that way the cut will go through. It's quite complicated movement. As for the hands themselves, it's like this. The left hand does most of the work. And the right hand, here, I never open the handle. These three fingers should be joined all the time. The right hand grip should be loose enough to turn the blade with the harder part, either mune or shinogi, towards the opponent's technique. Hop, 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 hop. And at the moment, just before the blade strikes the back of the sword, the mune, the hardest part of my sword, only then I tighten my grip. Here. Again. Goes, 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 goes. Here. I rotate it. I'm holding the mune or the shinogi out, and I am straightening my hands. I should be executing the block like this. Not so that I'm obstructing myself. That's another elementary thing. Now, it may seem strange to you that the blade is pointing towards me, and the back of the sword is facing the opponent. But as I turn my wrists, I can easily make that situational countercut. Okay? Here. This is the sharp part of the sword. This is the thicker part of the sword, more flexible and resistant to mechanical injury. So this is used for attack, and this is used for defense. This is the unsharpened sword, Mozoto. Kasumi Uke once again looks like this. 1, 2. The block in classical form has the following footwork. If I block here, holding my hands on the right side, I move my legs like this, left, right, diagonally, backwards. 45 degrees to the main direction. We should set the pledge quite dynamically, because if you're cutting like this, with this acceleration, with this force, then the block must be executed with a similar acceleration. I engage the whole body. If I make the block on the other side, step back and slightly diagonally pass here, also at an angle of 45 degrees. So step, 45 degrees. Okay? Step back, I'm in left position, and now, about there, at an angle of 45 degrees. One more time. I'll do that straight to you. In a sagittal plane. Step back and 45 degrees to the side. And, of course, remember about the proper arm work and leg work here. This is what Kasumi Uke looks like. The second block we will discuss is Nagasu Uke. Nagasu Uke is a block, or pledge, that is meant to defend you against the basic kesagiri cut. That is the oblique cut that goes from the clavicle or from the neck in this direction, all the way down to the hip. It's a cut at a 45 or 40 degree angle. The block looks like this. The opponent attacks me from this side, wants to cut me like this. 1, and to the other side, 2. Back into position. And it goes respectively like this. We have a rotating motion with the left hand. We let the sword handle, here, to rotate, while keeping these three fingers always on the handle, slightly joined. The others hold loosely. And hop. We put mune or shinogi. Similarly with Kasumi Uke. What is important? If you look here, It's like this. Some rules are universal. Here the handle is kept high, Kisaki is low. If he thrusts, his sword will slip in this direction. That is, with gravity, downwards. But you can't do it like this. Because here the elbow is sticking out, right? We do the block in front of us. 1, and to the other side, 2. And 2. And again the blade is facing us. But we just take the step forward and turn our wrists and have a nice counter. It's not pointless. It may seem pointless to someone who's untrained and a beginner, but you have to trust the instructor. This is what Nagasu Uke looks like. Nagasu or Nagashi means to put on. It's a basic block for an oblique cut. When it comes to blocking, there is also a general rule that if you have, for example, a diagonal cut, the block will hold this very well if the angle of the cut and the plane of my sword form a right angle. Somewhere here and here, right? If the angle is too sharp, then the blade will slip and may injure my leg. If it's about so, my arms in turn may bend. That is, the impact should be about 90 degrees with that block. The next, third block we are going to look at is Seigan Uke. This is a block for a thrust with one hand or both hands directed here, at the pericardium or heart. This block defends the entire Chudan zone, which is roughly from the shoulder line to the hip line. This is what Chudan Kamae looks like, which is the basic fighting position, where the sword is held at Chudan height, or in the Chudan zone, if I may say so. The block looks like this. I rotate the sword, so the blade is pointing upwards, but I'm still holding it at an angle. The idea is that I'm supposed to block this kind of thrust, a raised thrust, and also a thrust up to the chest. I shouldn't have done it horizontally, because I would have to hit my opponent's thrust perfectly from the side. I should do this like this. 1 and 2. I will show you what I mean. As with other blocks, we rotate the tsuka with the left hand. Tsuka is the sword's handle. In this manner, so that the blade is facing upwards. And just before the impact of the blade on the blade, we tighten our grip on the sword. The kisaki should be directed towards the center of the body, like this. If the opponent would make one thrust and then try to dodge the block and make a second thrust, I should go first. Okay? If I put my sword this way, well, that's called overblocking, which is putting too much force and too much movement into the block. And at that point, I'm going to have to do a big sweep, and he is going to continue by adding another attack technique that's just going to hurt me or even finish me off. This is a very economical move. 1, and it is supposed to slide in that direction. Keep in mind that this is a thrust, and it goes more or less in a straight line. So even if the sword is pointed this way here, it's not going to hit me anymore. It's going to slip. Now, leg work. Like this, left-right, at a 45-degree angle towards the back leg. 1. The counter from that usually looks like this, here. 1, 2. A quick cut from the wrists, hitting the neck. Okay? And on the other side, step back, and again. Hands go to the back hip. The forearms cross, and I stand in that position. So there is hop, step back, extend the distance, block, Kisaki is to stay on the midline of the body. The blade of the sword is to point upwards. I block with the side of the sword, shinogi. A very important block, because thrusts are very dangerous attacks, and they also have the advantage of being much less signaled. Maybe they don't have some super long range, and the katana is mainly a cutting weapon, because it's a two-handed saber, and not actually a sword, so it's mainly used for cutting. But look. At this point you can only see the tip of the coming sword. And it is hard to judge how close am I standing. If I'm doing a sweep, you can roughly see how long the sword is, what length my arms are. I'm performing a sweep, so you also have more time. Only when the sword falls down, it is dangerous, so you can move away. Even intuitively, you can see the range I have. If the sword is directed in such a way, a perspective screw is created between Kisaki and Tsuba. And it's much harder to predict what length the attack will be, and in general, it's more difficult to notice the movement. So it's a very important block. The fourth block we are going to talk over today is Gedan Mikatsuki Uke. That's the full name. Mikatsuki means crescent. It's a crescent block on a Gedan zone, from the waist down, which means we are going to defend the leg from being cut from the inside. Now, theoretically, you can either attack from the outside and from the inside. But these cuts from the inside are much more dangerous, because one of the most important, bigger arteries in your body is there. Therefore, in traditional fencing, we will focus on protecting that area. Gedan Mikatsuki Uke looks like this. This time, the front leg is like a sticking-in-place leg from a compass, which rotates around its axis, and the back leg moves in an arc. The cut will go from that side into the leg, which is how you should imagine it. And the footwork looks like this. Why I don't use this kind of footwork? Because if the cut is from this side, let's say we don't yet know whether the opponent is going to attack the front leg or the back leg, meaning that if I move the leg to the left at an angle backwards and the cut is from the left side, then, well, we're adding force to that cut, and I'm going to cut the leg by myself, which is clearly a mistake. Therefore, in this particular block, it looks about like this. Now, we block with either the side or the back of the sword. Again, the left hand does most of the work, and the right hand lets the sword circle away from the proper position here, like this, or this, side, or with the back, hop. And now I'm doing a descent in a circle. I'm using body rotation. This is called taisabaki. 2. I'm doing a half moon here with the katana, okay? This block also exists in the Chudan version. If someone does, for example, a push or a cut from this side, maybe I'm the one provoking him by raising my hands so he would attack here. Boom. I do such a block. But in its basic form, it is used to protect the legs from ashigiri, a cut to the leg. 1, 1, 1. It goes like this. On the other side, if the opponent cuts from the outside, here, into this leg, or if we are in the left position and he cuts about here, from the inside into the left, I take a step back and hop, descent. Step back and hop, descent. Again, you may think that positioning the blade this way is worthless. Okay, but also look. A cut like this from below will just hit someone in the genitals. It may not be particularly knightly, but it works. On the battlefield, it was great, because it eliminated the opponent. The target is weak, rather hard to armor. Well, just one. Hop. That's a move you will see in many traditional schools. And those are all the basic blocks.